Hello and welcome to the Ice Guys, brought to you by the National Hockey Now Network. This is the show that takes you into the world of the National Hockey League. Every game, every day, from a betting perspective. With pro sports handicappers, Ian Cameron, Alex B. Smith, and various guests from the world of hockey and sports betting. And now, here's your host, Ian Cameron.
Welcome to the Ice Guys, presented by National Hockey Now, Wednesday, December 28th, Ian Cameron, and joined by another special guest. Happy to have him. He's been on the show at least a couple of times in the past. We've got Mohamed Jama joining us once again. Follow him on Twitter at MJ_9. Mohamed, welcome back to the Ice Guys. How are things with you right now?
Not too bad. I appreciate you having me in. The last couple of days, Saturday in particular in the NFL was a little rough. Had some bad beats, but glad to be on here with you talking some hockey. You can never go wrong. The NHL is a long season. You go through the grind, but we're starting to come out on the other side here, getting to the back half of the schedule, and looking forward to it.
Yeah, no question. We're getting to the more important part of the season where games become more important and the points that are at stake become more important for teams that are obviously trying to make the postseason. Before we get into tonight's 5 games, by the way, on the Wednesday night slate, we'll look back on last night, the first night of action following the Christmas break. The Carolina Hurricanes with a 3-0 victory over Chicago. Congrats. I know Alex liked the first period puck. I should have been on that instead of the team total over 4. The one concern with that bet was even though Mrazek's been awful for Chicago, sometimes you see Carolina just really park the bus when they get a multiple goal lead, defend, not exactly look to extend the margin. And we definitely saw that last night from the Hurricanes. But a workmanlike shutout over the Chicago Blackhawks last night, 3-0 in that game. How about the Washington Capitals shutting out the New York Rangers 4-0 last night? Very impressive effort from the Capitals, especially because they're still very much a shorthanded, depleted hockey team, even coming out of the Christmas break without multiple key players on the blue line, up front as well, and still managed to get a nice victory there over the Rangers. And I've got to point out, I've got to start doing it. I've missed the mark. We've obviously hit our share of bargain bin value-laden player props over the last, several weeks, the full season. But the one I've missed the mark on and not capitalized, no pun intended, on it enough is Erik Gustafsson, this defenseman right now for Washington. He is suddenly just like scoring goals in bunches. He's been a massive point producer here the last, I would say, 5 or 6 games for the Capitals. And you could just get absolutely terrific numbers and prices on his props. And he's jumping into the play from the blue line right now for Washington. And he's made a huge difference for them offensively. And I just haven't taken advantage of it enough. But he scores again last night, and a nice 4-0 win for Washington in that game. The mighty Bruins, so they're not going to win every game the rest of the season, you say. Apparently that's not the case. They lose to Ottawa. Look, full marks and a big round of applause to Cam Talbot, man. He was absolutely terrific last night. It's the main reason why Ottawa pulls the upset as plus 160. Underdogs in that game, a 3-2 shootout win over the Bruins. Bruins played well enough to win. It's not like the Bruins played a horrible game. They obviously controlled the play, shot advantage, expected goals, high danger, all that stuff. Definitely Boston the better of it, but all that matters in the end is Ottawa gets the victory, and their goaltender was immense in that 3-2 victory. The Islanders taking care of Pittsburgh 5-1. I mean, a lot of people liking Pittsburgh last night. It took a lot of money as well. They got up to a -135 road favorite. They end up losing 5-1. Impressive, pretty thorough, in control effort from the Islanders last night, getting that 5-1 win. Dallas beats Nashville 3-2. Minnesota with a 4-1 win against Winnipeg. Disheartening effort from the Jets on home ice, but again, they're dealing with some injuries right now. Minnesota took advantage and a 4-1 victory, failed to capitalize and finish a lot of their chances as well in that game last night. How about the Arizona Coyotes? 6-3, very happy for me to see that result unfold, saying I took Arizona first period and full game. Money line split last night, and they continue to just be rock solid in terms of their effort on home ice. Now, they did have that one game they won against Boston where they got badly outplayed. They had no business winning that game. But overall on home ice, they've been solid, and they get another nice 6-3 win over Colorado last night. And Colorado continues to, when they win, they don't win easily. And obviously they've had their share of losses as well, continuing to not exactly play their best hockey with still, McKinnon and Manson on the blue line, but McKinnon especially out for the Avalanche, and they have not been nearly the same team since then. Toronto in a crazy affair with the St. Louis Blues, 5-4 overtime win in that game. Look, I've always said on this show, Wes McCauley, I think, is one of the best referee in the NHL, but that was not a good night for him last night. Hey, even Betty Crocker, as I always say, burns the odd cake, and it was not a good night refereeing that game from Wes. Bad calls, a lot to Toronto, but even some to St. Louis that he missed as well. And yeah, just not a good night for him, but the Leafs find a way. They win 5-4 in overtime. St. Louis continues to struggle in their own end. Again, Binnington having issues, and a great night from William Nylander again for the Leafs. He was immense in that win, gets the overtime winner, and a nice 5-4 win for the Leafs. And Leafs showing you they can win low-scoring and high-scoring games these days, and that goes a long way. Edmonton with a 2-1 win against Calgary last night. I mean, it was the Skinner show for the Edmonton Oilers. He was just spectacular, and showing you again why Jack Campbell's got the ball cap on, sitting on the bench night in and night out, because Stuart Skinner continues to give this team a chance to win every single night. He gets the 2-1 win. Best bet for the show for me, Cash, is with Vancouver, 6-2 over San Jose. As that game goes over the total, was happy to see that. And the LA Kings, I was on them last night, 4-2. They beat the Vegas Golden Knights. I figured it was a good spot to take LA, a very riddled Vegas team. Obviously, no Jack Eichel up front, no Jonathan Marchessault up front. They were without Zach Whitecloud, Shea Theodore, two very good defensemen. And then to make matters worse, they lose Alec Martinez to injury after the first period last night against LA. So they finished that game with three of their top six defensemen not on the ice. That's hard, especially when you're that shorthanded. And LA gets the job done 4-2 over Vegas. And yes, maybe the highlight of the night outside of the Arizona cashing and the best bet on the Sharks Canucks over cashing for me was Michael Amadio, once again at plus 575, scoring a goal, playing well on that top line with Chandler Stevenson and Mark Stone. That's 3 consecutive games with a goal for Amadio there. He scored again last night. The price was insane. It was outrageous, in my opinion, and it was nice to see that come through. And obviously, Vegas is on the board tonight once again playing Anaheim. So, when it comes to Michael Amadio, you damn well know what we'll be doing there once again tonight as far as that game is concerned. What do you think here, Mohammed, the action from last night? What were some of your thoughts, takeaways, betting-wise? How were things with you? Just anything you want to talk about from last night?
Yeah, I think Washington, you brought them up. I think from the start of the year, they were just a team that I kept trying to fade, and it just never worked out. Like, I remember I had them against Vancouver really early in the year. Vancouver kept getting up by a couple goals in Washington, and Washington just kept coming back. And at that time, no Wilson, no Backman, and a lot of those guys are still out. Carlson, although he's been back. And they just keep going. I don't know, like, they're a team that lacks foot speed. You look at their roster, it looks pretty ugly once you get past Ovechkin and Kuznetsov and a few others. But they're just a team that knows how to win. They're one of those teams, like, there's another time I had them in Jersey. Jersey was just pummeling them with shots. And Jersey loses the game 5-6-1, and you're just going, like, how? But, it's one of those things where it's a team that has that winning pedigree, and no matter who's out there, they seem to be able to find a way. So teams like that are always frustrating, but good for them. I mean, they're an aging roster, and it looks like they're probably going to find a way back into the playoffs this year. And I'd like to see them have some success again because it's been a while. LA, that was a game I was on last night. I think that team, Kopitar's not the same as he was. He's on the back nine of his career. They've got, Doughty's not the same guy, but you look at that team, the makeup of that team from 1 to 23 on that roster, it's as good as anyone. Like, they don't have the top end, but the depth on that team is insane. Like, look at last night, right? Like, Kopitar doesn't have a great game. Fiala doesn't have a great game. But who shows up? Deneau and Arvidsson. And then you got guys like Dursey on the back end that they think are going to take over for Doughty. So I think that's a team to look out for. I would actually say that I'd probably pick them. There's no way to bet this, I don't think. But if there was a way, I would say they're probably going to be the team to last the longest in the playoffs out of the Pacific. There's just really nobody else in that division I trust. Calgary, I thought, was going to be that team. But we'll get to them a bit later, and they've disappointed. I don't know how they didn't win that game last night, speaking of Calgary, but we can talk about that. And then on a final note, like I just want to give you props for how strong you've been with player props. I've never seen through podcasts, through shows, I've never seen a guy that can seem to nail goal scoring. I'm a naturally pessimistic guy. I always tend to lean to this guy's not going to score, and obviously you can't bet that, right? I hate those bets with like Matthews minus 125, minus 130. I would never touch that. You couldn't pay me to touch that. But props to you for being able to hit those and be so strong with those. And I think anybody tuning into the show would say the same.
Oh, I appreciate that. Very kind words. Yeah, I mean, to me, look, if you want to be Captain Obvious with player prop and goal scorer prop bets and bet your Austin Matthews and Connor McDavid every single night, go for it. I mean, obviously, look, I'm not going to say it's a horrible bet, but, you're obviously paying the price for it there when you're talking. Usually these guys are minus 130 a lot of nights to score a goal. I like to be a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more creative, and give my overall sports betting bankroll a little more bang for the buck. And that is why I put in the time and the effort to research things like who's moving on up the lineup, who's going to all of a sudden get power play minutes. And those things are not accounted for. They are not in the player prop pricing. When a player goes from third line work, fourth line work to the second line or the top line, it's not accounted for. There's no adjustment, especially initially. Maybe in time there is, but not initially, and you can take advantage of that. Even our guy Amadio, last night we talked about him for Vegas. He was plus 575. That was the best price available at Caesars Sportsbook for him to score a goal last night. Tonight there's been a little adjustment, but not enough. Caesars has it plus 475 tonight on Amadio to score a goal for Vegas against Anaheim. Nothing's changed. He's still on the top line. He's still going to be on the number one power play unit for Vegas. The adjustment's been slight, but it hasn't been enough. And it's going to be another case where it sometimes can take odds makers, especially in this sport, which does not get the attention that football and basketball does from odds makers. It could take several games for adjustments to be made, proper adjustments to be made with the player prop pricing with so many of these guys, like a Calle Yarncroke. I'm going back to Calle Yarncroke last night. Look what he's doing now since he's been moved up to the second line with Toronto. He's cashing in plus 400 goal scorer props as well. I mean, it's endless. You can take advantage of these situations with the player moving up the lineup, getting more minutes, getting more responsibility, getting increased power play minutes, all that stuff. And sometimes it can take odds makers several games before the adjustment is made properly on the price. Take advantage of it.
Yeah, and Ian, I'm sure you watched that game in St. Louis last night. I don't know do you see that shorthanded goal? St. Louis, like they literally had their whole man short was just standing around. You saw Parayko and Kyrou just standing in front of the net. They might as well have had their gloves shoved up through their hockey pants. It was like completely useless. You got Binnington swimming around like he's some sort of fish flop. Like all game he was flopping around in his crease. I mean, yeah, I did have St. Louis plus 170, and I don't know, like it was close, but it was just frustrating to watch that team because you see the ability and you see the glimmers and the sort of the flashes of brilliance, if you will. And then for other parts of the game, you're like, how is this team even playing in the NHL? Right? And you get to Toronto. I know that game was higher scoring last night, but man, that team, ever since Keefe took over, their neutral zone play and the way they shut you down is certainly next level. A lot of people, the media talks them up as this big offensive type team, but to me, they're much more of a defensive team that when they get a lead, they're very tough to come back on. And obviously their goalies, Samsonov and Murray, have outdone expectation, and we'll see if that can last into the playoffs. But I'm not a Leaf fan by any means, but I do have confidence, or I would worry as an opponent having to play them in the playoffs for how well their ability to shut you down defensively.
Yeah, definitely. Should be interesting to see if the Leafs are giving you all kinds of indications. They're ready to win playoff series, win playoff rounds, and we're going to have to wait to see it in April. I'm not ready to sign off on that till I actually see it with my own two eyes. Speaking of seeing it, we're going to see what's ahead of us here tonight on the Wednesday NHL card. We've got 5 games, and we will begin with Boston and New Jersey. Even money here, -110 both sides, 6 the total in this game. The Bruins off a loss last night in a shootout to Ottawa, 3-2. I mean, what can we say? As I mentioned earlier, Cam Talbot was just absolutely magnificent in that hockey game for these Ottawa Senators. In fact, he's been good lately. He's had a couple of really good. The Washington game, they lost that game, the Ottawa Senators, but he was very good in net that game as well for the Ottawa Senators. So he has been playing very well in net. Make no mistake about it. You look at anything that you want to look at in terms of expected goals, it was definitely in favor of Boston. And definitely, the edge to them in terms of carrying the play. But at the end of the day, they lose in a shootout. Simple as that. Now we get Boston off a loss. It is back-to-back, obviously in Ottawa last night, and, of course, crossing the border, which is never as easy the last few years compared to before that, although restrictions have eased up. But still, it's travel across the border going from Ottawa to New Jersey now for this back-to-back situation. That being said, you want to go against Boston tonight? Have at it. I'm not interested. This team has not lost 2 consecutive games in a row yet this season. Each and every time they have lost, they have bounced back to win the next game. At Ottawa, they lost 7-5. They beat Anaheim the next game. They have the loss at Toronto. They beat St. Louis at home in the next game. They lose at Florida. They beat Carolina at home in the next game. They lose to Vegas in the shootout. They beat Colorado and shut them out 4-0 next game. They lose at Arizona 4-3. They win at Vegas the next game 3-1. Shootout loss to LA just recently at home, and then they beat Columbus after that 4-2. So perfect off a loss, the Boston Bruins this year. That being said, I'm not going to bet Boston tonight, believe it or not. You would think, well, come on, Ian, you got to take Boston off a loss, right? I'd lean that way, but there's also that nagging worry in the back of my mind that, look, Boston's just had that Boston's peaked a little bit, just a little bit. I'm not saying obviously peaked to the point where now they're going to crash and burn. This is an excellent hockey team. They're not going away, but I think they're due for one of those little bouts of adversity here where maybe they lose a few in a row. And you look at New Jersey, this is a team that made a valiant comeback attempt against Boston last week. They were down 4-1 at home. Third period, they made it 4-3 with 2 quick goals, and they were really pushing to tie the game. And in fact, they outplayed Boston, outshot them 40-23 in that game last week. And the Devils chomping at the bit, to bounce back. They haven't played since that loss to Boston last Friday night before the Christmas break. Now, they haven't played a game. They were able to practice yesterday. We'll see how sharp they are. A lot of times, I will say, it's not only Boston off a loss. If you like the Bruins, you like that angle. You also like the fact they've got a game under their belt. That even though it is the second of back-to-back games, you're going to see multiple teams playing the second of a back-to-back tonight. This is not as big of a deal playing on back-to-back nights tonight specifically because you just came off a 3-day break, for Christmas. So it's not that, wow, massive fatigue spot, massive we're worn down and we're really, really, feeling it type of situation playing a back-to-back now, not after a 3-day break. So I'm off the game. I could only look at the Boston side because, look, they've won 4 straight against New Jersey. They haven't lost 2 in a row yet this year. And I sometimes like it when I see a team that's played a game following the break compared to the team that hasn't played following the break. So I lean Boston, but it's that nagging gut feel that I'm going to stay off it for that reason tonight. That New Jersey, I think, will play hard, play well tonight. Will it be enough's the question. Totals wise, I don't think this game, the first game went over the total. I don't know if this one will. You've got Linus Ullmark expected to be in net it will be him, definitely, because we saw Jeremy Swayman last night against Ottawa. For New Jersey, will it be Vitek Vanacek? Will it be Blackwood? Projections are Vanacek, and I like him more than I like Mackenzie Blackwood. So I'd actually think maybe this game stays under the total. And look, New Jersey's actually gone under 5 of their last 6 games. What do you think here, Mohammed? Boston, New Jersey?
If there was ever an example or a representation of how sort of public narratives and media narratives get out of control, like what was this stuff about Boston falling off a cliff this year and, not being any good and, missing the playoffs And then you pair that to Florida, who every year, like for the last 5, they've always been everybody's darling, and they're going to win the Atlantic, and they're going to go deep into the playoffs. I mean, last year they have the great regular season, and then they should have lost the Capitals in the first round. I mean, they got outplayed. The only guy that looked good on their whole team was Verhaeghe, and then they get swept by the Lightning, and that's in that same division. So that's why I compare those two. But man, I said it in the first week of the season. I said Boston's going to win the cup, and rarely in the NHL do you feel very good about saying that in a league with so much parity. And hockey by nature is a random sport. A couple bounces here or there, and your season can be done in the playoffs. But the leadership core, I think, is so strong on that Boston team that I think they could see the writings on the wall for guys like Bergeron. His days are as high level hockey as he's still playing. He almost retired in the off season, right? So as a Bruin, you've got to be thinking, look, he's probably got maybe 2 years left, and we got to try and get this done now. And I think that to a man that they'll pull through for him. And I really do like the Boston team, obviously, moving forward. I just don't know if tonight's a good spot. It almost feels like a bit of a scheduled loss in a lot of ways, right? Like you play after the break, you play in Ottawa, a tough game, you lose. You got a New Jersey team that is going to want to come out after the break, after looking pretty, I don't want to say like garbage, but they just couldn't get anything, couldn't gel. They couldn't get anything together the last few weeks before the break. Their goal scoring was way down. There's a few games where at home they were just listless. Like, I know they had a bunch of shots against Philadelphia, and they were sort of in the game with Dallas, but those are games you expect them to win, and they just were falling short consistently. So you have to think that they're going to have max motivation here. So they're really, when two teams are playing each other, and I see New Jersey trying to sort of mold their team and their way they play after Boston, quick strike through the neutral zone, transition game, capitalizing off of teams' mistakes, right? Not giving you a lot of space on the ice. New Jersey's got some guys like Miles Wood and guys like that deeper in their lineup, with speed and with some grit to their game. They're not really a team that, given their situation and how much motivation I think they'll have here, that I want to fade. Having said that, like you said, Boston, there's no value in this game. Like, I don't understand. If you're picking this game, you might as well just flip a coin, really. Same with the total. I mean, this could be 3-3 going to overtime, or it could be, it could be 6-4, or it could be 2-1, right? So it's just a stay away. I will say with Boston, I think the biggest difference for them this year is obviously the resurgence of DeBrusk. I think him getting back to his former levels and seeing him play at this type of speed, because he's a guy that can skate really well, right off the wing, get those chances off the rush. You're seeing a lot more of that from him. I think it was good for everybody that Cassidy moved on to Vegas. He's obviously doing well there, and it looks like just the depth guys, or the second line, really has come to life for Boston since then. And then you get Krejci back from overseas, who's probably one of the most underrated players in the league. They've done a really good job of insulating that core this year, I think. And you get Lindholm, as I like to call him, Humpus at the deadline last year, guy that's really solid at both ends of the ice. So I think they've done a good job of sort of retooling that roster on the fly. Not necessarily retooling it, but sort of insulating it and propping it up again. And they're going to be a bear, pardon the pun, come playoff time. But as far as this game goes, there's nothing I like here.
Yeah, I think it's a tough game. I really do. I think there's some props I like, and you mentioned one of them, Jake DeBrusk. I mean, Jake DeBrusk, whether it's a goal prop or points prop, I mean, he's just been terrific lately for the Boston Bruins, no question about that. He's decided, hey, I'm sticking around. There was that whole big deal and big story out there that he wasn't happy. They weren't happy with him. Both sides just wanted to split things up, and he ends up staying around. He doesn't get dealt at the trade deadline, and he ends up starting to play well second half of the year, and he's carried that over into this season as well. And you look at him, the last 3 games, he scored in 3 straight games, 4 points in the last 3 games for Jake DeBrusk as well for the Boston Bruins. So no doubt you could look in some kind of player prop direction with him in this game tonight, plus 250 or so to score a goal, and also the points prop for him as well. is let me just see here. Yeah, it's only minus 115 for him to get a point, and that's pretty good. Obviously, just to register 1 point, minus 115 for New Jersey. Look, you got to. Jack Hughes has a point in 13 of the last 14 games. He's been carrying things for the Devils, no question about that. What's disappointing is Fabian Zetterlund has not taken advantage of this opportunity on the top line. He's got a bunch of goose eggs, goals and points the last several games, despite playing on the top line. You got to think some point they're going to demote him. Will it be tonight? We'll see. But they haven't gotten the offensive punch they thought they would from him in that spot. It's mostly been Hughes, Bratt, although keep an eye on Igor Sharangovich. He scored in back-to-back games for the New Jersey Devils. That's the prop that kind of stands out for me. Again, a guy that's now scored in back-to-back games for them. So a couple of prop looks for me here with the Bruins and the Devils, but I won't be involved in the side or the total. Montreal and Tampa Bay next up. We've got Tampa Bay minus 360, home favorites, 6 being the total in this game. The Tampa Bay Lightning and Montreal both playing their first game following the break. A very long break for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They did not play Thursday or Friday last week. Their most recent game was last Wednesday, a week ago tonight, against the Detroit Red Wings, and it couldn't have gone much worse for Tampa Bay in that game. A rather stunning 7-4 loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Granted, the defense was not great, but Brian Elliott was really not great in that game, and that's sometimes what you get with Brian Elliott. He was not good that night against the Detroit Red Wings last Wednesday. I thought and look, it was one of those games where we talked about that Tampa-Detroit game last Wednesday. We said that I would expect Tampa to roar back after one of their worst efforts of the season against Toronto, where John Cooper said, that's the last time we're traveling into Toronto multiple days before a game, because they just didn't have their heads on straight. They were dominated by the Leafs the night before, and they came out with the right start. They got the first goal, but again, Elliott was just horrendous. It was one of his worst games of the season by far. They lose 7-4 to Detroit. Thank goodness I was on the team total over, and I always say that with the big favorites. Sometimes the team total, you could cash that bet even if the team loses, and that's exactly what happened with Tampa Bay in that game. If you bet over team total 3.5, you still got the money with Tampa Bay in that 7-4 loss to Detroit last week. So they are now sitting on 2 straight losses going into the Christmas break. They've had to stew on this now. You got to believe that they're chomping at the bit to get back on track here against Montreal. That being said, we've seen Montreal, and as Jarek points out in the chat, the first period look for Montreal. It's crazy how they've managed to stay in games early on the road. This is one of those nights where I feel maybe they do early in the game and Tampa Bay gets better and gets stronger as the game goes on. That is definitely a possibility. The bet that I like here is, to me, I'm not going to overcomplicate it. Keep it simple here, and that's over 3.5 team total. Or you could go with 4 if you prefer as well, because you get a better number. I mean, it is a pricey minus 160 or so with the Lightning team total over. But when you look at it, team total over 3.5 minus 160, still a whole hell of a lot better than, say, anything to do with Tampa Bay minus 360 in this game, when you can bet their team total over 3.5 instead at minus 160. But again, if you think that's still a little too pricey for your, it's actually minus 155 at BetMGM for over 3.5 Tampa Bay team total. If that's a little too pricey, too juicy for you in particular, could go with over 4 plus 105 is available as well at BetMGM. But the over 3.5, over 4 Tampa team total, I really do like that tonight. That way I don't have to worry about what Montreal does or doesn't do offensively in this game against the Lightning. We should see Andrei Vasilevsky in net. It is confirmed Jake Allen for Montreal. Another problem Montreal has, and obviously this is a team you follow very closely here, Mohammed, is that this blue line is just as a very inexperienced, very young. It's a blue line that the last time they played Tampa, and it was not too long ago, in Montreal, they lost 5-1. They have struggled to contain that Tampa Bay team offensively, struggled to defend. Positioning was bad, breakdowns left and right, because Tampa just moves the puck so well. And a lot of these guys have played together for so long. Stamkos, Kucherov, Point. I mean, they've all been together for Killorn. I mean, they've all been together for a long time. The synchronicity and the chemistry and the timing and the rhythm on the ice is there with this team, and Montreal couldn't handle it, and it's because of the youth. I mean, when you're trotting out on this Montreal blue line Caden Gooley, who's going to be good in time, but he's still very young. Arbor Jackeye has made a career of himself out of nothing, and he deserves all the credit in the world for him, but they got him playing a shit ton of minutes. He's going to struggle from time to time with it. Johnny Kovacevic, same thing, young kid. Jordan Harris, same thing, young kid. They just called up Justin Barron, blue liner from the AHL team. He's going to be in the blue line tonight because Matheson's still out. And, of course, Savard also still out. I mean, it's Joel Edmondson and the kids. That's essentially what it is right now with the Montreal Canadiens blue line at this point. It's going to be a tough ask tonight, defending and shutting down this Tampa Bay team after losing 2 in a row, not liking. Obviously, it's a team that doesn't like to go on long losing streaks. They've been good at nipping these in the bud over the years. That's why they've been one of the best teams in the NHL. So this is a tough ask for the Montreal defense tonight, and that depleted blue line, that very inexperienced green, young blue line tonight against this Tampa Bay team. So I like the Lightning team total. Again, you could go over 3.5 minus 155. If you don't like the juice, you could go over 4 plus 105. Save yourself a little bit on the price there. What do you think here, Mohammed? Montreal, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of on the same page. As far as the matchup goes, I know Alex touched on this not too long ago when these two teams played. Tampa's 19-1-4 in the last 24 between the two teams. So that's 24 games. But of those 24 games, 13 of them have been 1-goal games. And so maybe, if you want to take a bit of a risk here, you go with Montreal plus 1.5. Maybe you go with Montreal in the first period plus a half a goal because, as the guys in the chat have been pointing out, and I know you guys pointed out, Montreal's only trailed once all year on the road. So that might be a look. For me, I think you just want to – I think the safest bet is just goals. I think I have I hate juice. I never lay anything more than 125, honestly. So I would just go with over 6 in the game. I think Suzuki and Caulfield have been a little quiet. I think they started to get a little fatigued. If you look at their lineup, Drouin's been playing pretty good, but he just hasn't been producing. Gallagher's been out. That guy's been off the grid, by the way. Like, I don't know, he doesn't answer any texts. He doesn't go on social media. He was telling me the other day, I don't know if he's getting heat from fans in Montreal. I don't know, but they need him back. Anderson's been quiet. So I do expect Montreal to come out. And one thing that Montreal can do is skate throughout their lineup. Obviously, they've got a lot of youth on their blue line. So what does that mean? They're going to give up goals, but they're also going to be able to transition the puck and get some odd man rushes. And if they can capitalize, which has always been an issue with that team, if they can capitalize and get a couple goals. If Montreal gets ahead in this game at any point, if they get up 1-0 in the first period, if they get up 2-1 early in the second or late in the first, game's an auto over because Tampa's going to start chasing the game. And Tampa's going to get 1 or 2 on the power play. So I think at 6, I think it's a great play to the over. The one thing that I would say matchup-wise or stylistically why Montreal competes with Tampa but ultimately fails in the end, and you saw it in the Stanley Cup final, is Montreal can skate with them, obviously, and they're probably a better skating team overall. But the problem is that Montreal, they'll get 4 or 5. They've been like this for years. 4 or 5 great chances, don't capitalize. 1, 2-on-1 the other way in the net. Right, and that's a huge momentum zapper. Even when they had Price was frustrating with that, where Montreal would have a bunch of territorial play, and then one chance the other way, goal. And I would like this over better if it was in Montreal, just because Allen, for whatever reason, all year has given up goals on the first shot of the game. He's done it 4 times in Montreal. He's been much better on the road, but I still think this gets there. I think Caulfield and Suzuki wake back up, and I think the Tampa power play is going to be a problem. At Montreal special teams, like Montreal they're up over 50% in goals expected of 5-on-5, but they're down at like 40% between the special teams. So between power play and the man short. So if this game is played more 5-on-5, advantage to Montreal at least to compete. But the more power plays they are, that shifts to Tampa. So sidewise, if I was going to take a shot, maybe Montreal. Because the price is whacked. They've been whacked all year. But just over 6 in this game. This game should see goals.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ideas running through my like. I don't think Montreal first period's terrible because of just how they've been good coming out on the road here lately, and the first period numbers for Montreal on the road have been good. They've only trailed by once this year after the first period on the road. I mean, it's been pretty remarkable. But at the same time, this is one night where you also kind of think, well, should Tampa Bay come out firing here tonight in this game? First period, both teams to score might be a good bet, actually. In this one, you'll get a good price on that. I could definitely see that. I definitely think you're going to see this Montreal or the Tampa Bay team, look to respond. They're not going to be happy with those two losses before the break. And look, the one thing Tampa Bay's done consistently is score goals against Montreal of late. They got 5 past them last December. Last April, they scored 4 against Montreal. And then, of course, the 5 spot they put up just a couple weeks ago in Montreal. I mean, so if you've been betting over team totals with Tampa, you've been doing pretty well the last 3 times they played Montreal. I lean over 6 as well, like you. You like the over full game. The one issue I've got with the concern, I should say, because I would lean that way too. The one concern I have with it is Vasilevsky's getting his groove back right now for Tampa Bay. He has definitely played very well the last, I would say, 5 starts. 5 straight starts of 2 goals or less for Andrei Vasilevsky. So starting to get his form back once again. And I remember that Toronto game, the last start he made before the break, 4-1. They lost that game, but I'm telling you what, Vasilevsky, without him, it could have been much worse. That game, it could have been 8-1 Toronto that night. He was spectacular, I thought.
And I was just going to say that is my one concern. Vasilevsky just traditionally plays very well against Montreal. So that is the one kind of caveat to it. It's not like totals. And I'll be honest with you, totals in hockey are tough. And you know that, and everybody, I think, in the chat knows that. It's a lot about, especially pregame, if you can get a sort of gauge how the game's flowing, and if a certain team gets down in the game, that often will help you get over total and vice versa or whatever. But before the game, it's tough, and a couple bounces that that hit the post or miss the net by inches can be the difference. So I just think that Montreal's top guns, and I really do think like Suzuki. I know this might be a bit of a controversial take, but man, like when I watch Suzuki play, he has shades of Draisaitl, just in the sense of he has the ability, he has such poise with the puck where the game seems to slow down around him, and he can make such quick decisions with the puck, and he seems to see guys on the ice that very few can. And you pair that with Caulfield, who truly is a sniper. I just have enough faith that they can get a couple by Tampa. If Montreal gets to 2 here, I think at worst you push, and that's all you really need. So I think it's a good play to be over.
All right, good stuff. All right, and by the way, yes, Vasilevsky is confirmed. Vasilevsky and Allen, your goaltenders here in this one. And for prop wise, this is probably a night too. Like, don't overthink it with the Tampa props. If Kucherov, Stamkos, Point are probably the guys that are going to make the noise. I find when they've lost a couple in a row, the big guns respond for the Lightning. So we'll see if they are doing that once again tonight against Montreal. All right, next game, Detroit and Pittsburgh. We've got Pittsburgh minus 210, home favorite, 6.5 the total. Much like Boston, New Jersey, you do have a team that did play following the break last night. Pittsburgh didn't play well. Mike Sullivan, our worst game of the year. Flat out said it after that 5-1 loss to the Islanders last night. They're on a back-to-back looking to rebound. Detroit playing their first game since the Christmas break. So, again, if you're looking at that angle of the team that's played a game got the game under their belt versus the team that doesn't, it says advantage Pittsburgh in this game. I don't know if I want to lay a 210 price with Pittsburgh here in this spot, though they have completely dummied Detroit the last several meetings. Pittsburgh 6-1 in the last 7 head-to-head meetings against the Red Wings. A couple of ugly ones. The last 2 times they played Detroit, 1 in Pittsburgh, 1 in Detroit. How about a combined score of 18-4 in favor of Pittsburgh? Like, they have really handed it to the Detroit Lions here, or to the Detroit Red Wings here the last 2 games. It just happens every now and then. You get your sports mixed up. They have it's you know what, 18-4. I'm talking like a football score. 18. When I put numbers like that, that's what got me all fucked up there. But yeah, Pittsburgh 18-4 combined score last 2 meetings against the Detroit Red Wings. That's pretty hideous. And now Detroit is coming off that huge win against Tampa, 7-4. A lot of that was just Not a good night in net from Elliott going into that one. Pittsburgh, I think, wants to tidy it up defensively. They said too many gaffes with the puck, too many mistakes. They gave up 42 shots, way too lax defensively in that game. This is just a game I feel I'm going to stay off. Like I say, I'm being a little more cautious. I was like this yesterday as well. First day after the break. I'm being a little more cautious here as well with this game tonight, because I could see Detroit hanging around. I could see Pittsburgh whipping them. I could see it going under. I could see it going over. Could really see a bunch of different possibilities. Ville Husso and Casey DeSmith, not confirmed in net, but projected right now. We don't have a goalie confirmation on either side yet who will be in net. This is more of a prop game for me. Ricard Raquel has been where it's been at for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's been very good on that top line. Wouldn't argue with maybe a look on the player prop with him tonight, either goals or points. Jason Zucker's come back from injury, but kind of has struggled since he's been back, so I'd probably wait to see if he gets going. Brian Rust has got 2 goals and 2 points in the last 3 games. Not a bad possibility there. As far as the Detroit Red Wings are concerned, it looks like in their lineup, Adam Ernie's up to the second line. That's always something to factor in, because it seems like when he gets those added opportunities, he can sometimes chip in. Berggren, I keep waiting for Derek Lalonde to put him on the second or on the top 6 forward group permanently. Hasn't happened just yet, but Michael Rasmussen, by the way, keep your eye on him. He's on the top line right now for the Detroit Red Wings, at least before the Christmas break he was, with Dylan Larkin and David Perron on that top line. And Michael Rasmussen before the break, how about 5 points in 2 games against Washington and Tampa, including a 2-goal, 2-assist effort against Tampa Bay in that 7-4 game. So definitely looking at this as a spot maybe to look at some props involving maybe Raquel, Rust on the Pittsburgh side, Rasmussen, perhaps Ernie on the Detroit side tonight. What do you think here, Mohammed, with this one, Red Wings and Penguins?
Isn't this just sort of an ugly game? Like, I know these two teams met back-to-back years, I think in 08, 09, and 07, 08. In the Stanley Cup final back in the heyday of the Red Wings, and Datsuk and Zetterberg were still around. But at this point, this is just a game that I don't have much feel for. I think, Pittsburgh should win, but at that price, why? Like, I would advise anybody that bets the NHL or even bets in general, never lay a -210. I especially in the NHL where there's so much variance, right? I just don't see the point. Maybe you could go -1.5 on Pittsburgh, but I don't even like that. I think if anything, maybe you can slide under the total here. I mean, Detroit's 8th in the league in expected goals against. I know a lot of people are kind of high on Detroit. To me, I know they have a lot of youth on that roster and they do have some promise, but I just don't know if they have the talent to really push in the next couple of years for a playoff spot. Defensively, I think they're sound. I think that Lalonde is a good coach coming from the Cooper tree. I think they do a good job most nights of suppressing scoring chances and hanging tough. They have some grit, but they're not really a team I trust to score enough goals on a nightly basis to have success. So Pittsburgh is a team that's been trending under at home lately. For whatever reason, they sort of play more offensive hockey on the road. I wouldn't want to, at the same time, I wouldn't want to be fading Sid. Like Malkin right before the break, Malkin was looking real good, like all over the ice, pounding the puck, like making sure, that Ranger game sticks out in my mind where he was out on the ice. They were up 3-2, and he just would not let the Rangers get out of their own end. So when you have Malkin playing like that, that's a dangerous team. They're off a bad loss. Pittsburgh probably wins this by at least a couple, but it's just a stay away from me.
Yeah, for me, it's mostly props I'll be looking at, and the ones I mentioned are definitely the ones I am going to be looking to bet here, those players I mentioned just a few seconds ago. All right, that is the first half of the Wednesday card. We will be back to break down the second half, the last 2 games, if you will, of the card: Vegas, Anaheim, Calgary, Seattle, in just a few moments. But first, we'll hear from our sponsors, Ramco.
All right, whether you or your team's game is on the field, screen, racetrack, or the ice, Gramco is for the game. Grown by farmers who spent years developing premium hemp genetics, Gramco provides customers with consistent quality Delta 8 products ready for any occasion. Gramco currently offers numerous Delta 8 products such as vape cartridges, disposable vapes, pre-rolls, gummies, wake and bake coffee, and more. Gramco offers an enjoyable legal high delivered discreetly and directly to you, and is also available at many American retailers as well. Get the best Delta 8 cannabis products on the market shipped quickly and discreetly from Gramco. If you visit www.thegramco.com, use promo code ICEGUYS, you get 25% off of any order, and all orders on the site that are $50 and higher are shipped free with standard shipping. So live elevated with Gramco and check out their wonderful Delta 8 products today.
All right, we are back, and we are ready to roll on to Vegas and Anaheim. Next up, Vegas minus 180, road favorites, 6 the total in this game. Vegas obviously losing 4-2 last night to LA. And you talk about, again, all these teams on the back-to-back tonight that played last night. Boston has won, Pittsburgh has won, and now you have Vegas here in this game that played last night. Of all those back-to-back situations, this might be the easiest to deal with if you're Vegas. Think about the situation. You played in LA last night. You play in Anaheim tonight. There's no air travel. You stay in the same hotel. It's basically going to be a bus ride down the freeway, down the interstate highway to Anaheim for this game tonight against the Ducks. This is not, and coming off a 3-day break. And Bruce Cassidy said it last night in the postgame. I don't expect my team to be reeling and fatigued and feeling it tonight. You know, playing this back-to-back, you know, you're coming off the 3 days where you ended up playing, obviously, 3-day break over Christmas. You played last night. There's no major air travels to get from LA to Anaheim. So it's definitely, they can handle this, Vegas. I don't expect them to be fatigued. I don't expect them to be dragging ass, if you will, tonight as they take on the Anaheim Ducks in this game. And certainly they get the right opponent to bounce back. And look, I've not loved the Vegas team from a health standpoint lately, and they've been up and down, but a lot of it's been obviously injuries that's played a huge role. And I am concerned about that a little bit tonight in this game where, look, last night they were without Zach Whitecloud and Shea Theodore on the blue line. Both of them are going to be out again tonight. You're without Jack Eichel, Paul Cotter up front, Jonathan Marchessault. They all missed the game last night. I think there's a chance Marchessault could be back tonight, but it's not a given by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll have to wait on that until later in the day as he continues to deal with that lower body injury. And then, of course, you've got the injury sustained last night in the game against Los Angeles by the former King, Alec Martinez, who left the game after the first period, blocked a shot, didn't come back, and he might also miss this game tonight for the Vegas Golden Knights. So they're very much a depleted team. It's not like I'm in love with taking them here minus 180, but I do think, you know, they get the right team. If this was like playing at Edmonton or Colorado, even Dallas, you know, some of those at least upper echelon playoff bound foes in the Western Conference, on a back-to-back, you're going to have a tougher time with all these injuries. This is the Anaheim Ducks who, you know, that's usually what cures anybody, you know, when they lose the previous game. They're the ultimate team to bounce back and get right against. Anaheim's lost 3 in a row against LA, Minnesota, and then Calgary in overtime. Don't be fooled by the Calgary result either. They lost 3-2 in overtime. They got a point because of Dostal, you know, who's actually been pretty good in net for the Anaheim Ducks since he's been in there. This would be a game where Vegas first period interests me, minus a half, plus 140 is what you can get, I believe, on that. Yeah, plus 140, plus 145 with the Golden Knights first period puck line. I would split it up between that and probably Vegas in regulation. Because I do think even with the injuries here, you're going to get the right focus from this team tonight. You're going to get them playing a much better, tidier game. I think they just made a few mistakes. It doesn't hurt either that they've completely owned Anaheim, 8-1 in the last 9 head-to-head meetings for the Vegas Golden Knights over the Anaheim Ducks. So it's probably going to be a split bet that I'm going to place on the Vegas Golden Knights here. We'll do a little minus a half, plus 145 or so with the first period puck line. And then we'll go ahead with Vegas in regulation, which you can get around even money right now, minus 110 as well. And it goes without saying, you know what to do when it comes to our guy, Michael Amadio, where you can get plus 475 to score a goal in the game tonight. Once again, not quite the price point as high as it was last night, but he's scored in 3 straight games. He's still going to be on that top line with Stone and Stevenson. He's still going to be on the number 1 power play unit for the Vegas Golden Knights, which is where he scored his goal last night on the peeper. He got that goal for the Vegas Golden Knights last night against Anaheim. All the elements of a guy that is undervalued tremendously at a plus 475 price to score a goal. Top line, number 1 power play unit, goals in 3 straight games, back on the Amadio Express for yours truly tonight. What do you think here, Mohammed? Vegas, Anaheim?
Ian, I'm usually much more of a size guy. This card is a little bit gross, if you will. I lean goals here. I was just looking it up while you were speaking there, and Aiden Hill is 69th in goals saved above expected. He's not a guy stylistically I love or athletically. I saw him play here live this year in Edmonton. I find him to be a little slow laterally. I don't like some of his mechanics in net. Not that I'm a goalie coach or anything, but I've watched enough hockey and I coach lacrosse, and so I feel like I'm qualified enough to comment that I just don't like the way he sort of looks in net and how he reacts to the puck. So I'd either look to get up and over 6, or maybe take a shot with Anaheim over 2.5. That's a team that, their depth is a real problem for obvious reasons. But at the same time, they still have a few guys that can show up on any given night and score a goal or two. So I think this might be a game where Zegras can take advantage of a banged up Golden Knights blue line. Henrique is a guy that can show up in spurts. They have a few guys that can score. Klingberg's been better lately. I think Anaheim might be able to get a goal on the power play, and then from there you only need a couple more. So I would look at maybe goals for Anaheim or goals in the game in general, and I can't argue with Amadio as a good prop look. You're the prop guy. I would just, anybody in the chat, defer to Ian for those. But yeah, I think Vegas, on a back-to-back, yeah, it's not a lot of travel and everything, but just generally when you're playing a second game in 24 hours, your legs are, you have a little bit more built up lactic acid and you're tired. But at the same time, you're also going to be a little sloppier in your own end. But you're also going to be a little bit better in better rhythm. You're not coming back from a long stretch where you haven't gone and played at game speed in a while, right? So maybe Vegas gets up early and Anaheim can answer a little bit here. But yeah, I would lean just in terms of who's in net here. And if I would expect Dostal to play, but man, if it's Gibson, hammer the over. Gibson, much like Hill, Gibson looks shot, and anytime that guy's in net, you can't go wrong with going over. But yeah, in general, I look for.
It's
goals.
Not a maybe. It is John Gibson tonight for Anaheim.
Okay, yeah, hammered. Yeah, I would. You know what? I would strongly advise taking this over then.
So Grant, just from I like this over to I really like this over now with Gibson.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be Aiden Hill. I would be stunned if it's not. Aiden Hill after for Vegas in that after we saw Logan Thompson get the start last night for the Golden Knights against the Los Angeles Kings. So I fully expect, obviously, to see Aiden Hill tonight for Vegas in this one. So the over is probably not a bad consideration as well because of that. Over 6 minus 120. What's the series history been? It's actually been an over series recently with these two teams, 5-2 to the over in the last 7 head-to-head meetings between the Golden Knights and the Ducks. So I would lean in that direction as well, over 6. Yeah.
And sorry, Ian, but and Gibson for that matter too, just in terms of goals above expected saved. I was touching on how Hill's 69th, Gibson's 70th. So you're getting two guys that they're not gonna stonewall the opposition. And I think Anaheim's a team. You see this all the time. We're getting into the back half of the schedule. I'm not quite there yet, but we're well into the season now. Teams that are out of it start playing a lot looser, right? And what's Anaheim got to lose? They're going to want to try and go out and score some goals tonight, right? So I think this should be a 6.5, and so at 6 you got to play it over.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me see what Anaheim is on extended rest this year. I'm always interested on extended rest. They are 1-0, but just the one piece of data to go with that, and 1-0 to the over as well. But again, very limited sample size, so you can't make too much of a big deal of that. All right, final game on this Wednesday slate: Calgary, Seattle. We've got Calgary minus 115, road favorites, 6 the total in this game. This is another example of team that played last night versus a team that did not play last night and has not played since the break. Calgary at home against Edmonton last night. They lose 2-1, but man, unfortunate to lose 2-1 to the Oilers last night. Did everything but tie that game against the Oilers late. I mean, poor Backlund, he hits the goalpost in the dying seconds last night. They were just all over Stuart Skinner, and Skinner ended up holding the fort and really stealing 2 points for the Edmonton Oilers last night against Calgary. So Calgary looking to bounce back tonight as they take to the road and face the Seattle Kraken. Seattle actually beat Calgary earlier this season back in November at the Saddle Dome. 5-4 was the final score in that game. We'll see if Calgary can avenge that defeat here tonight as they take on the Kraken. You know, it's going to be interesting, but you look at Calgary, 16-3-7, but boy, things could be so much better for them, to be quite honest with you. I mean, if you look at expected goals and for and against and all this stuff, you know, Calgary's like right up there in terms of top 5 team in the NHL. It's kind of mind-boggling that it's just been so up and down. And the thing is, they have not gotten timely scoring. You know, the offensive well was running dry, especially earlier when the Flames were struggling to score goals. That's number one. And number two, you know, Markstrom's been leaky at times this year, and he's not been up to snuff, up to par. And then Vladar has been great some nights and not so good other nights. So D and goaltending has suffered, and they flashed up a graphic during the game last night. Calgary has scored 1 more goal this year than they did last year at this time. Think about that. The Flames have scored 1 goal more this year at this time as they did last year, So they're actually scoring, and that's with Tkachuk gone and Gaudreau gone, and everyone was just you know, frightened how things might go offensively for them this year without Gaudreau and Tkachuk, and yet they've scored 1 goal more at this time this year compared to last year. The bigger issue is they've given up way more goals so far this year compared to last year, and that is where the problem lies for the Calgary Flames so far this season. Goals against has gone way up, even though they've actually scored 1 more goal than they did last year at this time. Seattle, they lost 6-5 in a shootout to Vancouver before the Christmas break. A stunning loss because they looked like they were going to win their 3rd in a row, and then Vancouver rallies to tie it in the 3rd period, and then they win in a shootout by a score of 6-5. We'll see how they fare here tonight. It's Philip Grubauer getting the call in net for the Kraken tonight. We should expect Vladar on the back-to-back to be in net here for Darth Vladar, as they call him in Calgary. We should expect him to be in net for the Flames. It will be Grubauer for the Seattle Kraken. He's still looking to find his form. His last start against Winnipeg was a lot better, a 3-2 win for Seattle, but it was a bad spot for the Jets. They didn't generate much. They only had 17 shots on goal. They really, didn't really get things going offensively. So it was a good effort from Grubauer, but he probably still needs to show more because he had given up 7 in the 2 previous games before that. His overall numbers this year, 3-5 win-loss record, 3.29 goals against average, 882 save percentage. So he's still got a lot to show me moving forward. I like Calgary here a little bit in this spot at minus 115 with the Flames as a short road favorite in this one. The over, I would go in that direction as well. Each of the last 2 meetings have gone over the total between the Flames and the Kraken with 5-3 and 5-4 final scores. I would look in both of those directions tonight. Flames money line, Flames and Kraken over the total as well. What do you think here? Last game on the card, Mohammed, Calgary and Seattle.
Yeah, Ian, I think you read my notes on this game. Calgary's in expected goals are top 10, both for and against. And now, granted, Seattle is up there as well in both categories, but I think you're getting a game here where you have a team that's sort of overachieved all season, playing a team that's underachieved. And I think when that meshes in the NHL, and the NHL in terms of betting is very situational, and you've got to take advantage of certain spots. And this is almost like the perfect storm here, where you've got Calgary not only struggling record-wise, but they're off a loss. They're on a back-to-back. So the bookmakers, the odds makers, they ding them for that automatically. You got Seattle, who's been good at home, off rest, but again, it's off of extended rest. That's not always the greatest. Um, Calgary's made up. This is the thing you got to understand is Calgary's made up of all veterans. They're probably the oldest team in the league. So who do you want to trust more than Calgary to rebound off of what was the worst, I think, from just games that I've seen this year, easily the worst loss of the year, the most fraudulent loss of the year. Like Edmonton could not get out of their own end. Like they spent the entire third period hemmed in their own end. They couldn't possess the puck. It honestly looked like a midget triple team playing a peewee team. It really did. And then there's a soft call on Mangiapane in the offensive zone, and McDavid does what he does, grabs the puck in the high slot, snaps it off the bar in the net, and then Calgary almost ties it up, but they don't, and they lose, right? That's hockey, and that's why hockey is such a frustrating sport as a bettor, as a fan, as a whatever, right? Things can just swing so quickly, and in ways that just don't feel right. And I think Calgary has a leadership core in that room. I trust Sutter. I trust guys like Kadri and Huberdeau and Lindholm and Backlund and guys like that to step up and say, look, like this is a team that's ahead of us in our division. The travel's not that bad. The game ended relatively early last night. It's not like they would have been getting into Seattle at 5 a.m. or anything like that. So I think you can trust Calgary here to respond, rebound, and win this game. The total I don't have too much of an opinion on, just because I do like Vladar. I think that he's a guy with promise, and he's got that big frame, that prototypical like NHL type frame where he's got long limbs and he's able to get across the net pretty quickly. He's an athletic guy, so don't know if I love the total, but I would lean over with you. But I just got to go with Calgary here. I think they know their season's in the balance here, and Seattle's just begging to start losing here and giving up goals. They're still a team I don't trust to keep the puck out of their net, and two teams that play relatively similar styles. Like they like to get in on the forecheck, they like to play physical, they like to turn the puck over on you. Calgary's just got the better horses here, and Calgary is 4-1 all time against Seattle. Their one loss coming earlier in the year, which is maybe even another point in their direction. So give me Calgary. Calgary Flames on the money line here.
All right, Calgary on the money line here, -115 for Mohammed in this game. There's some line changes for Seattle. Burakovsky, Bjorkstrand, Wenberg, all going to get more power play minutes, it looks like. And as far as Burakovsky's concerned, maybe a move up to the top line for him. So there's some Seattle options as far as props go. I want to mention, too, one guy for Vegas in the previous game I didn't mention. Obviously, Amadio was my favorite prop in that game, probably the favorite prop of the night again, like it was last night. But Pavel Dorofeyev for Vegas looks like he's going to get power play minutes as well. So you could really get a bargain price for him to chip in offensively tonight in this game for the game, I should say, the Vegas Anaheim game for Vegas tonight as well. And obviously for Calgary, one of the players that we've been talking about repeatedly on this show is Dylan Dubé. Obviously nobody put the puck in the net last night, but assuming Daryl Sutter doesn't make too many changes, and he shouldn't. I mean, it's not like, hey, we got to make all kinds of changes last night because we lost. No, he played a damn good hockey game. Skinner was on fire, stole the game for Edmonton. It's not like he played horrible. He played more than well enough. He controlled play in that game. So I think there's reason to expect Dylan Dubé to still be on the top line with Elias Lindholm and Tyler Toffoli, just like he's been the last several games. So that means Dubé to score a goal, Dubé to get a power play point, just to get a point in general, all worth a look once again, in my opinion. Because usually when Calgary wins and Calgary scores, Dylan Dubé's been in on it lately for the Flames. And you can get plus 390, plus 400 in some spots for him to score tonight, -110 to get a point, plus 480 to get a power play point. So excellent value on Dylan Dubé props tonight, once again, for the Calgary Flames. All right, that's the Wednesday card. Great stuff with our special guest, Mohammed Jama, joining us. 214 live viewers currently on YouTube. Hit the like button. Reminder to check out patreon.com/iceguys. Just $10 a month to sign up for that. Our daily Ice Guys show betting card posted there. Goalie charts, totals charts, power ratings, and more. Patreon.com/iceguys. We will be back with best bets in just a second, but first we'll hear from our sponsors, Manscaped. Support for the Ice Guys is brought to you by Manscaped, our good friends at Manscaped, who are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you, courtesy of the Ice Guys. Get 20% off of any purchase and free worldwide shipping with the promo code ICEGUYS. That's promo code ICEGUYS, all one word, ICEGUYS at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 400 million balls that you can help preserve with manscaped.com using the promo code ICEGUYS. You get the Performance Package 4.0. It is a game changer. The Lawnmower 4.0. It takes care of this, among other things. It'll keep you trim as can be. The Lawnmower 4.0, waterproof. Same thing with the Weed Whacker, which takes care of your ear hair, nose hair. I mean, nose hair in particular. You know, I'm getting up there in age, and nose hair is becoming definitely more of an issue. This will take care of it. It feels like someone's tickling the inside of your nostrils sometimes. It pisses the hell out of me. It bothers me. I need to take care of that shit. This will take care of it for you. The Weed Whacker makes part of the package that you get with your Manscaped purchase and the Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. You also get the ball toner. You also get the ball deodorant, keep you smelling good and looking good and feeling good down in the nether regions. This package is really going to make you feel good and look good and look better, slim, trim. That's what it's all about. And manscaped.com can help you out with that. So make sure you take advantage of this. Manscaped.com. Get 20% off and free shipping with the promo code ICEGUYS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the promo code ICEGUYS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. All right, it is time for Best Bets here on this Wednesday edition of the Ice Guys. We will start with you, Mohammed. What do you like for Best Bet?
So, Ian, just a couple things before I get to that. In that promo, you're saying you're getting up there in age, man. You're still a young dude. I don't know what that's about. But in all seriousness, I just want to say thanks for having me on here. I think you do a great job. Day after day, you're so consistent with the content. And you do it in a way that I think really involves the viewers. I think everyone in the chat will attest to that. I think people really appreciate what you do. And for people in the chat, thanks for joining us and contributing. I don't know if I've seen a more, just in general, like a more positive chat. You guys are always helping each other out and providing advice. Nobody's in there, oh man, I just hit a five pick parlay last night plus 1050, and and banging their chest. I think that's great to see. So good job by everyone. For the best bet, let's just go. It's between that over in Anaheim and the Flames money line. Let's just keep it simple. We'll take the Flames money line. I think this is going to be a playoff type approach for the Flames. I think they're going to go in there and get a lead and do what they need to do to get out of Seattle with a win. I just think they're the better team, more desperate situation, and I think they get the win in Seattle tonight.
All right, there we go. Calgary minus 115 against Seattle. Best bet for Mohammed Jama here, our special guest on this Wednesday edition of the show. And yes, our chat largely, I think we had someone with some, I'm just noticing it actually a few minutes ago, and I was late to notice it, some oddball type weird comments going on. But other than that, that's about the worst it is. I mean, we have usually a very good chat. They can, and you're right, they're not thumping their chest about winners too much. It's good to do that, but it's not your sole purpose to in the chat. You're providing info. You're commenting on what we're talking about on the show. It's great. It's a great chat. It's a great community that we have built here with the Ice Guys show, and we love it. We thank everyone, obviously, that tunes in, participates in the chat, and tunes in, watches the show, and also listens on the podcast version of the show as well. All right, my best bet here for this Wednesday card, I'm going to go with Vegas in regulation, -110. Yes, I know they're banged up, and I remember I'm kind of going against what I said yesterday, saying I want to fade Vegas with all these injuries. It's one thing to fade them against a competent, capable Los Angeles Kings team, and it's a totally different story fading them fading them with an Anaheim team that can't get out of their own way, that is going to have John Gibson in net tonight for the Anaheim Ducks, even though Lucas Dostal's been the guy that's keeping them competitive in recent games. Here's John Gibson for you as of his last few starts. 4 against San Jose, got pulled. Carolina gave up 3. Minnesota, he gave up 4. Seattle, he gave up 5. You get the point. I mean, he's just not been good this year. 5-14, 3.99 goals against, 896 save percentage. Vegas is banged up. There's questions about whether Marchessault comes back. There's questions about whether Alec Martinez comes back after he blocked that shot last night. Still very shorthanded. But even this shorthanded Golden Knights team, I think, has enough in them to get past this woeful Anaheim squad tonight. Vegas, -110 in regulation for my best bet here for this Wednesday night. All right, that'll wrap up this edition of the Ice Guys. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out. We appreciate it very much. A reminder, the Ice Guys is live 7 days a week, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday and Sunday, noon Eastern. If you can't watch the show live, download the Ice Guys podcast in audio form on all major podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. Download the Ice Guys podcast when you can't watch the show live. For our special guest, Mohamed Jama, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Enjoy the games and good luck. We will talk to you again tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the Ice Guys presented by National Hockey Now.